Welcome to 3.5 Podcasts. I'm your host, Sierra Bell, and today I want to talk about a couple things. I'm all over the place, so I'm going to try to stick to a topic. It's probably going to be real difficult, but we're going to hope and pray. So, I want to discuss, first of all, this social activist and scientist that I found. Her name is Vandana Shiva. She's a nuclear and quantum physicist, as well as a social activist and an environmentalist. She is one of the leaders in the small farmers ecological revolution movement to protect small farmers. Not only protect small farmers, but protect the planet, protect the ecosystem, to stop the violation of nature and the exploitative nature of big agriculture that threatens the circle of life and threatens human survival on the planet. So, yeah, I just learned about her. I'm still learning about her. Right here is one of her books that I've been reading. As you can see, here it is, the same book in my hand. And what is it that I've learned so far? I guess the main premise of this book is how historically women have been the main food producers for human society, which is really crazy to me, because when you think of a farmer, I think of a guy. I think a lot of us do. But most of the food that is produced in the world, that is fed to people in the world, it comes from small farms. Most of the world's food production that feeds people comes from small farms. So small farms feed the world, and they are more productive than industrial farms. Another fact is that most small farmers today and historically are women. So, most small farmers are women, and small farms feed the world. So, that is extremely substantial. In India, there has been the world's largest protest. Hopefully you've heard of it. If not, all you have to Google is India, the largest protest in history, and you'll find it. It is about farming, and it is about the rights of small farmers. And it is about small farmers being threatened by deregulation of food prices, of selling and the production of food, and being threatened by big corporations. That is the story of colonization, really. Vandana Shiva, in her book Staying Alive, also talks about this idea of development. Development is as a new project of Western patriarchy. Development was to have been a post-colonial project, a choice for accepting a model of progress in which the entire world remade itself on the model of the colonizing modern West, without having to undergo the subjugation and exploitation that colonialism entailed. Development is a modern word for colonization or colonialism. So that is what we use today. Okay, so Rosa Luxemburg has pointed out, early industrial development in Western Europe necessitated the permanent occupation of the colonies by the colonial powers and the destruction of the local natural economy. According to her, colonialism is a constant necessary condition for capitalist growth. Without colonies, capital accumulation would grind to a halt. Development, as capital accumulation and the commercialization of the economy for the generation of surplus and profits, thus involved the reproduction not merely of a particular form of creation of wealth, but also of the associated creation of poverty and dispossession. A replication of economic development based on commercialization of resource use for commodity production in the newly independent countries created the internal colonies. So development projects is a process of reproducing the colonial model in other places. Economic Hitman, this book up here in the cracks, Confessions of an Economic Hitman, discuss this very well. I also did an episode about economic hitmen and debt, and how debt is used to impoverish nations and to take control. All right, so check this out. Grain.org, supporting small farmers. Small farmers produce most of the world's food. But how many of us realize that they are doing this with less than a quarter of the world's farmland? The vast majority of farms in the world today are small and getting smaller. Small farms are currently squeezed onto less than a quarter of the world's farmland. We are fast losing farms and farmers in many places, while big farms are getting bigger. Small farms continue to be the major food producers in the world. Small farms are overall more productive than big farms. Most small farmers are women. So I really care about 4, 5, and 6. So, lots of fruit from little land. In Belarus, with 17% of the land, small farmers produce 87.5% of fruits and berries, 82% of potatoes, 80% of vegetables, 32% of eggs. Botswana, small farms are 93% of all farmers, have less than 8% of the agricultural land, and produce 100% of the country's groundnuts, 99% of its maize, 90% of the millet, 73% of beans, and 25% of the sorghum. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. She gives a stat in here how small farms are hundreds of times more productive. An example, and it's partly because of the diversity. Women use more plant diversity. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization report, Women Feed the World, women use more plant diversity, both cultivated and uncultivated, than agricultural scientists have knowledge of. Contrasted with the monocultures promoted by Western science. In Nigeria, home gardens, I love how they're called gardens. Okay, gardens. We need more gardens in the world. Less lawns, more gardens. Home gardens, women plant 18 to 57 plant species. In sub-Saharan Africa, they cultivate as many as 120 different plants alongside the cash crops managed by men. You get it, diversity. Women got the diversity in the plants, in the home gardens and such. So while biotechnology is projected as increasing food production 4 times, small ecological farms are hundreds of times more productive than large industrial farms based on conventional farming. As FAO's World Food Day 1998 report on Eastern Nigeria found, which this book was first published in 1999, by the way. A report on Eastern Nigeria found home gardens occupying only 2% of a household farmland accounted for half the farm's total input. So with only 2% of the farmland, they accounted for half the farm's total output. Women-run farms produce more food and nutrition than industrial chemical farms. Now, part of why these small farms are more productive than these big farms is because these big farms are more monoculture farms, meaning they have very little diversity, and a lot of the land is used for non-food, non-vital products, which also causes harm to the land a lot of the time. Deforestation is a part of it. So a lot of land is used, for example, to grow things for biofuels like ethanol, or to grow feed for animals. The book has a great quote about how the poor person's food is used for energy for the rich. And so that's part of the story of why small farms feed the world and industrial farms don't really feed the world. In fact, they're harming the world. Small farms not only produce most of the food, they are also the most productive. For some, the idea that small farms are more productive than big farms might seem counterintuitive. After all, we have been told for decades that industrial farming is more efficient and more productive. It's actually the other way around. The inverse relationship between farm size and productivity has been long established and is dubbed the productivity paradox. In the European Union, 20 countries register a higher rate of production per hectare on small farms than on large farms. In 9 EU countries, productivity of small farms is at least twice that of big farms. In the 7 countries where large farms have higher productivity, it is only slightly higher than that of small farms, which is still ridiculous, to be only slightly higher. Most small farmers are women, but their contributions are ignored and marginalized. The role of women in feeding the world is not adequately captured by official data and statistical tools. FAO, for example, define only as people who get a monetary income from farming as economically active in agriculture. So this is another important point that the book Staying Alive touches on, is the idea of women's work being invisible and work that is based on nature and the currency of life being invisible. Unless you can show, some sort of monetary profits, then you aren't considered productive. But women's work sustains society, sustains family. It feeds people. It keeps people alive while also maintaining the integrity of nature. But that's not, unless you making a dollar, then you're not considered productive and your work is invisible. And the book touches on the need to move our mindset and move our society towards a sustenance economy. An economy not based on profit maximization or capital accumulation, but a society based on sustenance, based on the well-being, the survival needs, the need satisfaction. The currency being sustenance, the currency being life. The last published agriculture census figures from El Salvador indicate that women are just 13% of producers, meaning farm holders, much in line with the number provided by FAO. However, the same census indicates that women provide 62% of the labor force used on family farms. I suggest reading this article. No, not this one, this one. It talks about the largest Indian protest based on the ideas of protecting small farmers, and it talks about the women leading that struggle, and in general in the world, women leading the ecological fight for the climate and farming and sustainability, yada yada. And this also talks about how they're invisible. Their work is invisible. 85% of rural women in agriculture, but only around 13% own any land. Women are not seen as farmers. Their labor is immense but invisible. I hope that you all learned something about the world, about women, about the importance of women in food production, about the importance of localization, and just important facts about small farming in comparison to industrial farming. It's just a different way to think. Tell me what y'all think. Comment something interesting that you learned, or even like a dispute or something you would like to correct me on, or something that you would like to add. And peace out. And let me say it to the camera. Peace out.